I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest to share with you today, Kris Miller. I'll talk about her in a second, but before we do, for those joining us for the first time or forgotten what Warrior versus Zombie is about, let me tell you that. So success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses, that all are part of making us who we are up to this point and provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future, and today's guest is absolutely no exception. Kris Miller is an amazing warrior and has a vision of a world where people celebrate their lives when they retire. That's a great vision. Kris is a teacher, speaker, and best-selling author. Her unique value is financial freedom, second chances, and how to thrive in an uncertain economy. That's pretty timely here. Her journey has included mansions and forest fires, #1 records, and a 3,000-mile barefoot journey across America, as well as $1 million of chemotherapy. Now, that doesn't sound like fun. Her 30-plus warrior journey has included advising over 6,000 families. She has been featured as a guest on hundreds of radio and TV programs, published in hundreds of print and online publications, and spoken on stages across the country for companies and top financial organizations. She's a certified senior advisor, a chartered federal employees benefits consultant, a legal document assistant, or what we call a paralegal, and she's been nominated for Woman of the Year and Best Customer Service by the Chamber of Commerce. Finally, Kris is the money maestro. She's written several #1 songs and author of the #1 bestseller, Ready for Pre-Retirement, Plan Retirement Early so your money is there when you need it. Kris Miller, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie.
Thank you, David. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Wow, impressive. I can't wait to hear your story and some of the things. There's a lot of eclectic, but yet very clear things that have happened in your journey, and we'll talk about that after we take a quick break. But so you got up early today, right? You're in Southern California. Do I have that right?
That's right. I'm in Winchester, California, right over the hill from Palm Springs, and kind of an hour and a half from San Diego.
So is the area you're in kind of rural, or is it more like Palm Springs, which is the Palm Desert, but it's very it's like an oasis?
It is a high desert. So it's desert and it is like an oasis in a sense. It does get hot in the summer, but we have like an eternal spring here. Barely a little bit of winter. Pretty comfortable most of the time.
So is it very dry there?
It is very dry. Yeah, we're in that drought, and the drought just keeps going on. That's the problem. We have rain. It's like, woo, right? Have a bucket and collect it.
Well, as a human, that just creates a very personal challenge to staying hydrated all the time, because I still remember it wasn't in the high desert, although I have been in the area that you're talking about. I was in Phoenix, Arizona in July, and it was 113 degrees, and I teed off to play golf at noon, which was a bad decision, but that was the only way we could I could get the guys that I was golfing with together. And I played 18 holes of golf, drank almost 2 gallons of water and never sweat and never had to go to the bathroom. So if that gives you any indication. So hydration is a challenge. Yeah, that's a little
right.
PSA for any of the warriors that are listening here.
Health is wealth, right? I put two quarts of water, and I know how much I have to drink every day.
Yeah, well, you look very healthy.
Thank you.
Any other things going on in your world that's crazy and creative right now that we need to talk about?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, I don't want to get too much on the crazy side, but California is pretty crazy, and it's still in my world, it's pretty, as a national speaker, it's pretty still locked down,
Mhm.
and they want to keep it locked down. Still, they're not releasing a lot of the laws that they've had. In fact, they're trying to double down on it. So that's not really a fun thing. So, like
Yeah.
you get creative and go around it and do different things to keep it going, right?
Well, that's pretty well said. And I mean, this isn't a political
No.
podcast. So all I will say is we all gave everybody over the last few years a little bit of grace with, not really understanding what was going on. And now we all know
Right.
from the
We
gas
know.
prices to the to dealing with COVID to everything else.
Yes.
It's not an accident. These people
No.
aren't stupid. There's people who have intentions to do certain things, and they're going to do them and hope that you don't figure it out until they've got it done. So anyway, we won't go there. I'm done with that one. And
Sure.
let's do this. Let's take a quick break because I want to get right into your story. I want to hear how you got from where you started, which you get to define that starting point, to where you are today, and then we'll take another break after that. So let's hear, for the audio audience, let's hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There, and we'll be right back with Kris Miller and Warrior versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race.
All right, we are back. And Kris, as I said before the break, I want to kind of hear how you got to where you are today. So tell me your story. Tell the audience your story.
Well, I'll take it from the beginning so you get a whole line of the image of, when I was born, even before I could form, thoughts and words, my first prayer was peace on earth for every living being. And that motivated me even before I could consciously think. And so as I grew up, back in the time I grew up, there was a movie called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, and it was about St. Francis. And man, it just lit me up. It was like, I want to grow up, and I was like really little. I want to grow up and be like that. I wanted to, help people. And so, I grew up like a normal kid, but what happened was it set me in a different thing. I started reaching out and studying God and looked in all kinds of religions. And, I went to UCSC, and I was in college and was seeking God. It was back in the roaring 60s, and there was a lot of, Vietnam War, and that really pushed me into, this is not right. We're supposed to kill each other. And so with that drive, I was seeking the truth, and I ran into some folks that were walking like Jesus Christ. Take no shoes, no script, no person. They had white robe, bare feet. They were nomadic. They didn't work for money. They lived in faith, trusted in the Spirit, and they went north in the summer and the south in the winter. Now, back in those days, in the 70s, people were able to travel on the road. And, there were, massive people on the road. So we split up in twos and threes, and we never hitchhiked, did a lot of walking, that literally walked barefoot across America. Of course, we got rides, hot freight trains, literally didn't know where we would be tomorrow. And we worked for love. We worked for truth. I'd go into towns and people would have seen us in dreams. Now, I never read the Bible. I was actually born Jewish, right? But the point was, spiritually, it was like plugging into the creator, right? I got the download. So I'd open my mouth and the Spirit would come out, and I'd hear things that were said to that person. At the same time, I was hearing it in my soul, learning. So it was an amazing experience that I was like plugging into the Bible. I didn't, read it page by page. And that altered experience, that mountaintop experience, it was like putting on another pair of glasses. It was like taking the veil back and seeing reality. So after I had this mountaintop experience, then I came back into the world, you could say, and of all places, and I know we're going to talk about the down part of it later, what happened when I came back, right? But when I came back, I entered into the world as a paralegal, and I started studying law, and I started working for an attorney, and I was helping, with appeals and legal things. And then I learned about estate planning, and I was working with an attorney and on a living trust. And this widow came into the place, and all she had was a car and a house and no money. And back then in 91, 92, he wanted to charge her $5,000 for a trust. But because of my mindset, I just said, well, can't you give her a deal? Like, have some compassion. And he went, no, it's cold as ice. And what it did was it instilled me. And I said, goodbye. And I started my own business. So back then I was one of the first people in Southern California as a paralegal. So I was walking on a gray area back 30 plus years ago, talking about living trusts versus wills. And it was really kind of controversial because at that time there was a mystique that only attorneys can prepare living trusts, which wasn't true, but that's how the media had set everything up. So as a result of that, people would end up losing their assets in the end of their life because they didn't have the right paperwork. And that really bothered me. So that's what motivated my business, right? That's what got me started.
Sure.
Now, as a result of that, there was a pattern that started, which actually why, I wrote the book, was the first decade, people were coming in my office to do their living trust, and then preparing the trust, I had to ask them about their financials. And I saw this pattern. It wasn't that I was so smart. It was just 30 years, over 6,000. I did stop counting portfolios. You see a pattern. The first 10 years, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the 90s, we were in the inflation, and people were living off their interest. Then in the end of the 90s, 2000, we had the crash. So the next decade, people were coming into my office and they lost 20, 40, 60% of their assets in the crash. And I went, what is going on in here? And then another thing I noticed was everybody, and don't feel offended because this is everybody, but everybody that was coming into my office was starting their retirement plan at 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. It was like, what? Oh, you go to school, you learn how to make money, you get out of school, and what do? You make money. And what most people do, they give their money to a planner, and they really don't understand where it is. So I'd say, where's your IRA or your 401k? Oh, it's a so-and-so, or my bank. Where in the bank? And because people are disempowered around that and embarrassed, they really don't understand what's going on with their money. So I saw 3 things, no matter if I had a client that was $44 million or living paycheck to paycheck, there were 3 things that everybody missed, no matter how fabulous we're. Maybe there's a small percentage of people that now have it because the word is out and the momentum is there. So, and those are the 3 things that I talked about in the book, that people don't know how to protect their assets from catastrophic illness, long-term care, and the Great Depression. And so that's what I focus on when I do like financial fitness strategies, so that they have healthy money, happy life.
So that we're kind of getting into where you are today. But I want to, I definitely, first of all, you would have been what we called the hippie, or Jesus freak if you were following the life of Christ and walking barefoot across the country. So I find that fascinating, first of all, and then the interesting thing of then ending that nomad hippie lifestyle, as I say, and that's not disparaging at all, because I was kind of a long-haired hippie freak myself during that time. I think we're of similar vintage. The thing is, Then you got into law, which I think is kind of fascinating how your journey ended up in law, and then encountering the injustice or the thing that kind of was the catalyst for launching you into kind of doing what you're doing, or on the journey of what you're doing today. Let me ask you this. So what were the bumps in the road, or what were the zombies that you encountered in making that transition, or as we're doing some of the things? I know as every warrior, including myself, there's things that you've had to overcome, either go around, go over, go through, whatever those are. So tell us some of those things.
Well, to pull back the curtain, it did take me a lot of years to feel comfortable to share the story, but and then I missed the piece of when I came from the mountaintop coming back into studying law. Well, why was I studying law? So to go back down into the zombie zone, I'm also a singer-songwriter. I'm on a record label in Nashville, even during this time now. But at that time, I had gone to Hollywood, and I had an a cappella choir, and it was literally some of the sisters that were walking down the road, and we used to sit around the campfire, downloaded hundreds of songs, and God said, go to Hollywood, make a record. Like, what? And I fought it for a number of years, but we went, 7 of us, white robe, bare feet, knocked on the record label door, sang live, got a record deal. We're given a mansion to stay in. We had, vans. We were on TV, radio, cut record. It was about to launch. Everything was going my way when all of a sudden the ego monster came and got me. And I got arrogant. I stopped giving God the glory. Mm-hmm. I started doing what, the story of what happens to people with fame, vanity. Vanity got me. Ego got me. I thought I was so cool because I was the leader of the choir, and all these songs are coming through, and look how cool I am, and I'm on TV. All of it got me. And then I started doing things I'd never done. See, I had put the robe on almost 18, so 17 3/4. I hadn't had really a lot of life experiences. I was really kept back. And so I had never done any, wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing any drugs. But when I went into Hollywood, I started doing drinking and drugs. I lost the robe. I lost my voice for 10 years. I lost the joy of the Lord. I couldn't even smile. I ended up homeless. I ended up on drugs, and I couldn't stop, even though my arrogance, I can stop whenever I want to, but I was homeless. And as a result of that, I would get arrested, and then I get released. And that was back in the days when they used to hold, keep the laws. And then I'd get arrested again and released. Finally, I ended up in prison. I actually did time in a fire camp, and I fought fires. And during that time, I had, got on my knees again, had my Jesus moment, and was writing songs in prison. That's where I studied law. And that's why, because I was my own, attorney. And I was, working on all the injustice, even doing the crime. There was so much fraud inside of the system against that, I had to be my own attorney. And as a result of that, I became a paralegal. And that was where I hit the bottom. And I hit the bottom, had my Jesus moment. And at Jesus moment, I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. And when I got out, I started brand new from the bottom, worked at a gas station. It was kind of like my first job ever. And then worked my way as a paralegal and found myself in a place because I was here to serve. And it really wasn't really took me a couple decades to realize I could make money in what I was doing. I was really about helping the people and how I could serve.
Wow. Okay. So I'm so glad I asked that question, because I got to tell you, wow. I mean, that I didn't know that. I don't think in our previous discussion, we even got there. And, that is so powerful, because, that tells me so much. And I think tells the other warriors so much about, who you are, and not only what you're going forward, but why you're doing some of the things, and the unique value you provide. You've been in the system. You said some things that I we don't even have time to drill down on about. That's been back when we kept the laws. That's when we actually enforce the laws. Again, you're in California, I'm in Texas. We don't have to get political. All I can say is, again, we've seen things, we know things because we've seen things, right? I mean, we see the things. So that's so brilliant. So wow. The chemotherapy thing you didn't hit on. So what's that about? That's got to be a zombie in your
It is
journey
a zombie.
as well.
Well, it's a family story. It's a personal story of my mommy. And it's so hard because she empowered me. Otherwise, I'd be crying right now. Really, seriously, because she came up to me one day and she said, honey, and she had a big tear in her eyes, here. And she's like shaking and holding this paper. And I go, what's wrong, Mom? And she goes, here, I want you to share this with your clients. And I looked at it, and it was a bill from Stanford Hospital for 5 days of chemo, $90,000. And she had chemo 5 days a month for a year. So $1 million is not a lot of money. And back in those days, most people don't have catastrophic illness protection or long-term care protection. And my family didn't. My dad was a genius. He went to Caltech, and Einstein was actually one of his teachers. He was a genius. He was a brilliant man. He was very successful, and, made multi-millions. And thank God he had the money to be able to have comfort for my mommy. But she had the cancer for 10 years, and it was constant, this kind of chemo. And then it went to the liver, and then it went to this part of the body. And they only gave her a year to live. Don't listen to your doctor. She just prayed, and her will to live went 10 years. So she went through 10 years. They went through millions of dollars. I'm grateful they had it, but I learned a lot of hard lessons there. And there's nothing more emotional than having your family go through it. Now, I talked about it in my business, but it really never connected until it was my own family. And now that's just part of the flame that when I talk to people, the living reality of what I've learned and the preparations that people have to do, it's part of what I do, right?
The thing I love so much in talking to warriors every week, and I talk to many, many warriors throughout every week, not just on this podcast, because I run a large networking group. I'm in the Be Connected community. I have the opportunity to hear stories like this. It's always fascinating to me to hear the little snippets of your journey that have now manifest themselves into where you are today and are very clearly evident in the journey that you're striving for going forward. Well, I think we could, it sounds like we could talk about a lot. You and I both have a lot of journey that we've already been on, and I'm sure we will spend time talking, but what I want to do now is take a quick break, and I want to come back, and I definitely want the audience to hear why you're doing what you're doing today. And obviously, I already heard some of the unique value that you bring to the party. And then I want to understand what kind of impact that you have. And then we'll move into the Land of Plains segment. So with that, let's take another quick break. For the audio audience, you'll hear another snippet of It's Not the Getting There, our theme song from Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be right back with Kris Miller and Warrior versus
It's
Zombie.
not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth are
Wow.
always
Okay,
two
Kris,
different games.
that was crazy. So
The
we're
years
back,
slip by
and
so
I'm
fast.
just blown away. There's so many things, little aspects of your journey that paint a picture that I didn't have before we started this. So I'm thankful that you're authentic and willing to share some of those things. I think a lot of warriors will listen to this and realize that they've made their own mistakes. They've had their own thing. They've got their own zombies between their ears, and they've got their own challenges in the world that they're in. But I don't know that there's a whole lot of them that are in prison or or have been, or have gone through some of the things you've gone through. So thank you for sharing that. Again, I'm very grateful. So as I said before the break, tell me why you're doing what you're doing today, which I kind of know, but I want to hear it. And then, the value you see yourself providing, and then, what kind of impact.
Okay, so just to tie a little string to it, imagine yourself walking on hot coals. And I literally was doing that when I was fighting fires. I looked down and I had these big black boots on it, and it was like, wait a minute. And then I was in my bare feet, and then I was in these boots. So it was like bam, bam, bam. And it engaged me. I was like, literally had manifested a purgatory on earth for myself by the way that I thought, and the zombies that I had let inside of my brain that I didn't really even know that I had fed into. So it was a reality check. And so as I landed back in, as I told you, and I saw this pattern, as I said, it wasn't that I was so smart. I was one of the first people in Southern California, really in the country, to do these, presentations on, living trusts, and talk about it openly because it was hidden from people. And then as a result of that, by talking to thousands of people, that's where I saw like a boat that we were just trying to get to the other side of the lake, and there were all these zombies or alligators that were trying to get us. And the three main ones that I saw was and I see it as a spiritual thing. It's not just, I'm talking about money, but money is an energy. And so it's really how you look at it and how you plan it. And it really affects what you're doing with that the same way you do with your health. And it's all tied together spiritually and physically. So I look at it as the same thing. But the three things that I saw were where people failed, where they had leaks in their boats. And honestly, I saw more people lose their money at the end of their life in probate because they didn't have the right paperwork, or the stock market because they had greedy brokers that weren't, they'd sell them something and then they wouldn't come back and say, hey, you got to, get out of the market right now. Right. And people don't understand what's happening globally because it's a whole global thing. It is a reset, and it's not a conspiracy, but the money system is changing. People don't understand that. I have to spend a lot of time studying that. And it's so counterintuitive to my spiritual, who I really am. It seems to be, but this is actually the best place that God had me to serve and be able to help people. So, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm good. And it relates to music too. So, but the three things that I saw, right? And then the catastrophic illness. Here's the pandemic. No one even had a power of attorney for healthcare or catastrophic protection to stay in their own home. How about this? Now, this is straight up. After a couple decades, I found out about the safe money. It was really hard to find out. It was blocked. They wanted me to go and say, hey, you need to put your money in a stock. But hey, David, I cannot look you in the eyes and tell you that because I don't want it. I couldn't do that. I could not. I have to own what I sell. So I'm not in the stock market. I am in safe money. I've never lost a dime in any market risk. What? That's right. And neither are my clients. So I'm on the safe money side. Mm-hmm. I learned late in life about tax-free income. If I was in my 20s, 30s, I mean, it's fabulous what people can do. Imagine, making 5 to 9% and never losing your principal. Then the money comes out tax-free. What? And these things aren't really common knowledge. Part of my goal is to share that, to get this information, because even people that don't have a lot of money can actually create money in these kinds of programs. And that's what I want to do, is empower people around that. It isn't just money, but it's an energy so that people can give back and do the good that they're supposed to do.
Wow. That's a great, so if I can play back what I'm hearing is, for one thing, is you found some things along the way that have served not only yourself but your clients in regard to money and the thinking of money. And it's the same way. First of all, there's a few things that you said there, and money and your health are both blessings from God, and they're also, we are a miraculous creation that if we're given the information and the nutrition, both in our life, in sustaining that miraculous creation, and given the information that we can process, we can do miraculous things.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times, as you point out, the unwillingness of people to allow us to consider certain things, and especially, this is what we call a VUCA environment that we are in and moving more heavily into. You understand the term VUCA? It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it's hard to, that's a military term, by the way.
Okay.
That's actually a legitimate. You can look it up.
Yeah.
And I've been sharing that with people right now because I went through the gas crisis back in the day with Jimmy Carter.
Yep.
I went through it. My first mortgage on my house was, I think, my mortgage rate was like 14%. The inflation was, you took on as much debt and spent any cash you could because it was worth half it was a few years later. I mean, the rule of 72 works both ways. And so there's all kinds of things that I learned through that process that now my 5 millennial children and a lot of warriors are like, okay, you've never experienced this. They've never seen
Right.
what we're going into. So having people that have a passion and are willing to share that, like yourself, is an amazing, unique value that I see you bringing. So, what is your goal as far as impact? I know you want to give us. Are you? I know you wrote a book. Tell me a little bit about that and why you did what you're doing to have the impact you want to have.
Well, it's a sequence here because it's time to broadcast. So I'm, launching a TV show and a podcast and getting, I used to have a syndicated show. So I'm going back on that. I, used to travel every month, as a national speaker. That is morphed, right, with the pandemic and traveling, right, and flying and all that. It's not really so it's changed, and it's now about broadcasting. Now I have 2 companies. I have Healthy Money, Happy Life, which was the foundation of Healthy Money to show people how to plant their money so that, the monsters, the zombies don't eat the roots and it dies, right, on the vine. So you can double and triple what you make and get out of the inflation and get out of the taxes. And that's the Healthy Money with the 3 things I talk about: living trust and catastrophic illness. Then I morphed into, because around 25 years in my 30 year of practice, I saw that I was spending more time talking to people about mindset, and that people were like, they were making really good income, but they weren't saving anything. What was it? It was their zombies. It was the zombies that were sabotaging them. And I ran into my business partner, and we created a company called Legacy Shifters. So we're working on our next book, and we have a mindset shift your life group coaching, which is a mindset where her and I do a combination shot. Because when we were talking, she said to me, there's more of me than you, because I came from wealth. She came from poverty. She came from, the barrio, right, in the other side. And so we just hit it off. And she says, there's more of me than you. And so we've developed content so that we can raise up everybody. And we've gone into the inner cities. We went to Atlanta, to a lot of the high schools down there, and, teaching the youth. And so my end game is Shifting Legacies, which is our nonprofit, when that is my legacy. Because my children, I don't have children in the flesh, but because of that, the whole world is my children. So I feel this responsibility. I can't just, I could stop working. It's fine. But the assignment on me is like, I owe so much. So that debt, right, is driving me. It gets me up at 5 a.m. to give back. And so I'm starting to broadcast. It's morphing into the book and these programs that we can teach the youth and teach, growing youth, big people that are still kids, about healthy money. And legacy mindset so they can live their legacy now instead of it something that happens when they die. Be a living legacy. So it's a shift and showing people how to have the mindset shift so that they can leverage that green energy that they have, right? And so that's the morph of it. I'm weaving in the songs. I'm weaving in my money maestro part and because I want to, it's happy money. It's everybody's so scared of it, right? Fear of money, and they don't want to talk about it. But I want to make it happy. Like, imagine you're not going to have to worry about, running out of money. You'll get a paycheck every month and make it a happy thing. So I'm weaving in the songs and the music and the healthy planning.
Amen. Okay, so preach it, lady. I mean, I'm with you. I can tell the passion. There's no way we have time on this podcast. What I'm going to do, I'm going to say right now before we launch into the next segment, land the plane segment, is I'm going to have you on my Connect to Thrive mastermind, and we're going to spend 90 minutes on a show that will come up here in the next few Fridays. We'll get on the calendar, and I'll have you back, and we will drill down a little bit, because there's a lot of things you said, both with 5 millennial children as well as being a baby boomer myself. There's so much to serve on both ends of that spectrum, and I think there's some parts that, not just in the financial area, but on legacy and impact and things that are a passion to me. So maybe there's something here. Maybe, I run my life by divine appointment. Amen. So maybe there's something here. But let's do this. I want to take a quick break. And unfortunately or fortunately, we're going to come into the land the plane segment, where once we come back, I want you to share with the audience, if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you want us to take away? And then we'll make sure they understand how to stay in touch with you. All right, so let's take a quick break. We'll hear the last break segment of Ricky Jean Wright, and it's not the Getting There, the theme song of this podcast. And we'll be right back with Kris Miller and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God, on down the road.
All right. Well, I don't know how long we've gone, Kris, but it's been moved so fast. And there's so much more to talk about. But as I said before the break, share with the audience, share with me, if we take away anything from this, what 1, 2, or 3 things do you want to make sure we don't forget?
Well, this really helps me, and I know it'll help a lot of people, because a lot of people are going through depression and zombie this and zombie that, right?
Right.
Here's a tip that you can take home and do right now. And this is how I get through, because I got zombies too. It's not like they go away. You just know how to manage it, right? And it works. And I make myself do this. So when I get up in the morning, before I land my feet on the ground, I think of at least 5 things I'm grateful for. Gratitude. Gratitude is the attitude that will give you the latitude and the view to above the zombie conversation. It lifts you up. And sometimes maybe it's hard to find something. You get caught in a zone, right? And you're kind of just driving in faith and just trusting that it's going to work out. Trust the spirit. But find 5 things you're grateful for. Maybe you don't find it just, well, you're breathing. You have a bed, you can eat, you have food, you're warm, right? And then it morphs. It starts to multiply. And then, what I do is I find those things I'm grateful for. I set my things. I'm walking in Jesus, and I land my feet on the ground, and I'm up for the day. And I do that before I go to bed. Before I think of all the things I'm grateful for my new friend David, and the beautiful connection we had, and all the people we get to talk to, and how we can help people. And then I just soar, and then that's how I land. That's how I end my day. And now I find that I've been in practice of that for a number of years now. It happens all through the day. And even when you hit your hand, and it's like, ouch. And you almost like go, I'm grateful for, because, oh, that pain just showed me, well, don't do that again. And you learn to be grateful for everything. So that's an energy that will lift you above the zombie zone.
Wow. So here's the thing, and everything you've said along this way makes me realize how aligned we really are. And I have clients, one of them being my youngest daughter, by the way. So, and I know she'll listen to this podcast, and I'm going to say that that's one of the things that we're working on. By the way, all my kids are clients, but they're also pro bono. So, but that, you know the financial picture, right?
Yeah.
If I make them successful in their lives, ultimately that will hopefully accrue back to me. So I want them to be successful. So that's an investment. But all I can say is, going to bed and waking up with gratitude, counting your wins, knowing the things that you have creates what you hear certain people talk about. And it's all buzzwords and things like that, but it's that whole concept of abundance thinking rather than scarcity. And if we take the moment, every warrior here can benefit from what Kris just said, is if you realize that the fact that you woke up in the morning is a blessing, and the fact that you are healthy and you took a good breath, and you can do all the things you do, and that you can put your feet on the floor and you can get up and walk or whatever you can do,
Right.
is a blessing. It's something that it's all gravy from here. I mean, you're not having them bomb your house. You're not doing all this there's not all this stuff going on. There's so many things, and I don't focus on, hey, I'm better than them. I look at my own self, but there's so many things. So that's so powerful. Well, Kris, I know we could talk forever and ever and ever. I'm already figuring that out. So I know we can get you. I know this is live in the Be Connected platform. So, Kris Miller, and Kris is a K. I can tell people that.
Yes.
So a Miller is kind of common, but the K with a Kris. So if you put in Kris with a K, the community is only about 10,000 strong right now. So you're going to find her. And she is definitely somebody you want to connect with. But beyond that, how else do we get in? I mentioned your book in the beginning, but how else do we stay in touch with you?
Well, I have several ways. You can, if you want to learn more about wanting a financial fitness strategy session when there's no charge for that, but I just, ask your age, your health, your wealth, and I, design something for you that I own, that I've done for 30 years. You can go with meetwithkrismiller.com. And then that'll put you on my calendar so I can talk to you there. You can send me an email at Kris, K-R-I-S, at Healthy Money, Happy Life. You can even call my office at 951-926-4158. And I'm really happy to connect and hop on the phone for a quick chat to see how I can help you. And I've helped thousands, tens of, I have, like I said, I stopped counting, but that's the best way. There's also a thing, Your Legacy Shift. There's a free giveaway there, yourlegacyshift.com. You can also go there, and there's a little download workbook you can catch there. I got a lot of free things to give away to help people, and that's my passion. And I look forward to connecting. And thank you so much for being able to be here with you. It's been really, really a joy.
Well, again, thank you for getting up a couple hours earlier, to be with us today. I will say that if you send me those links, since there's a few things there, I'll post on the YouTube channel, which will have the live replay, and also on the Be Connected platform. I'll have those links that listeners can follow. So if you're listening to us on the audio podcast, I know sometimes when you're driving, it's hard to remember all these websites and things like that, even though they're pretty straightforward. So I will post those, and those will be available. And again, I definitely will. We will have a mastermind session with you coming up on a subsequent show, on our Friday show. So with that, I am so thankful, Kris. Thank you. It's been a joy, the blessing,
Yes.
all these things. And I know the Warriors are going to be inspired and blessed by what you've shared today. So let's, with that, we're going to land the plane here. outro of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Warrior vs. Zombie at 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know.